Fala galera, estamos ao vivo aqui para mais um webinar. Hoje eu estou aqui com o Thiagão da Receita Previsível. Cara, é muito massa de ter aqui. Eu acho que o primeiro webinar que eu fiz foi logo que eu entrei na Snovio, foi lá com o Thiagão, ele me convidou e a gente já bateu alguns papos aí. Pô, acho que todo mundo aí conhece a Receita Previsível. A gente conseguiu. Eu falei com ele, cara, será que não dá para trazer o Aaron? E ele fez a ponte aí, então a gente já fez esse papo. A gente vai mostrar aqui ao vivo depois para vocês. E aí a gente vai bater agora um papo, né? Um pouquinho antes, sobre alguns pontos que a gente levantou. E aí, primeiro, Thiagão, se apresenta aí, fala um pouquinho pro pessoal de onde que tu vem, o que comes.
Para onde que vai?
É isso.
Cara, primeiro, obrigado pelo convite, Giovanni. Acho que é um prazer sempre estar aqui contigo. A gente sempre troca muita figurinha e é muito boa essa parceria que a gente tem aqui da Receita Previsível com a Snovio. Pessoal, falando um pouquinho, né, sobre aqui a Receita Previsível, né? Eu sou o CEO aqui da Operação Brasileira, da consultoria, né, que vem aí da metodologia do livro Receita Previsível, que foi criado pelo Aaron Ross. E a gente se propõe aí a te ajudar a criar maior previsibilidade em vendas, a partir do momento que você estrutura o seu próprio processo comercial para que você tenha mais controle do que está acontecendo, que tenha mais resultados e transforme, então, sua operação, de fato, numa máquina de vendas. Falando um pouquinho do Thiago aí, eu trabalho na área digital há 13 anos. Eu cheguei na metodologia Receita Previsível, ainda não era esse livro com a capa laranja, que inclusive recomendo para quem não tenha, que leia ele e consulte o tempo inteiro. Ele é um livro bem bacana de consulta, porque eu gerava muitos leads para os meus clientes e muitas vezes esses leads não convertiam. Eu comecei a rolar aquela síndrome do impostor, né? Quem está vendo a gente aqui, se já rolou isso aí, por favor, comente também aqui. Mas falava, cara, não é possível, eu tô fazendo tudo errado, né? Tá tudo acontecendo de uma forma diferente, né? Eu tô gerando muitos leads, mas isso não tá virando venda. E aí, foi assim que eu cheguei na metodologia e conheci alguns anos atrás. Hoje eu sou responsável aqui pela toda a parte de estruturação das consultorias e treinamentos que a gente desenvolve, e também mentorias específicas aí sobre a Receita Previsível, em conjunto com o Aero, que é o que a gente vai falar daqui a pouquinho aí com ele também. Então, prazer estar aqui com vocês e estamos aí para falar não só sobre, né, o tema original aí do webinar era sobre estratégias de pequenas e médias empresas e acabou que eu e Giovanni a gente se empolgou tanto aí no que a gente podia falar, por tanta coisa que a gente vai falar de alguns tópicos aqui que não são só específicos para pequenas e médias empresas, mas você aí que está com dificuldade para implementar a metodologia, né, ou estruturar a sua máquina de vendas, vai poder pegar insights práticos aqui e colocar na tua startup, colocar na tua empresa. Então, bacana também que a gente vai participando aí, comentar o segmento em que atua ou a empresa que trabalha, que a gente pode trazer exemplos mais reais para a realidade de vocês, né, Giovanni?
Perfeito, Thiagão. Cara, e um dos pontos muito massa que a gente trouxe justamente fora do pequenas e médias empresas, a gente pode trazer isso para qualquer tipo de prospecção e comunicação, na verdade, né? É a questão da pessoalização que o Aaron trouxe, e depois vocês vão ver isso. O que é isso? Cara, é muito massa. Eu mandei hoje os materiais para o Aaron e eu recebi um e-mail de volta. E lá no fundo do e-mail dele, cara, ele manda um vídeo, que é um vídeo dele brincando com as crianças. E é tipo, o nome do vídeo é Day in My Life, um dia na minha vida. E, cara, ele brincando, e aquilo ali é ele, né? Então, isso a gente vai discutir muito, que além da personalização que a gente já falou bastante aqui, e é muito importante, né, Thiagão? A gente vai falar um pouco dessa personalização, botar o seu toque pessoal, não só para vendas, mas acho para tudo que a gente faz, né?
Muito bom, Giovanni. Excelente insight esse da assinatura. E é de fato, né? A gente convive com ela, a gente vê que realmente ele é aquela pessoa que está ali no vídeo. Hoje eu fiz uma reunião com ele, ele estava no carro, e aí vem criança, conversa, brinca. E, cara, você vê que ele é uma pessoa que ele vê que o ambiente, né, dele, ele não gira só em torno do trabalho. Isso é bem interessante do ponto de vista aí da gente pensar que nós somos seres humanos também aí por trás dessa máquina de vendas, dessa pressão por resultados. Essa personalização que o Giovanni falou, pessoal, é um ponto importante que a gente percebe muito aqui na prática, e é uma das dicas práticas que eu vou falar aqui, e que o Aaron vai falar um pouquinho também na palestra dele de uma forma um pouco mais aprofundada, né, que é ir além do processo. Né? Aprender a metodologia de Receita Previsível, você pode ler o livro, você pode consultar o workbook, quem não conhece, está aqui, o novo livro também, que tem ali todo um caderno de exercícios para você ir executando e colocando em prática na sua cultura, metodologia. Mas vai chegar um ponto você vai se deparar em ter que escrever um e-mail, ou fazer uma abordagem por WhatsApp, ou fazer uma abordagem por LinkedIn, ou, né, fazer uma ligação telefônica e falar com o teu prospect. E aí, cara, tem um ponto aí, um erro muito fatal, que é todo mundo seguir os mesmos scripts, seguir as mesmas fórmulas, seguir os mesmos conteúdos, né? Então, a personalização vem justamente para esse ponto de como que você vai ser diferente na sua abordagem. Né? O Giovanni, né, a gente conversou de forma aprofundada sobre isso com o Aaron, e o Giovanni viu aí na prática, né? Beleza, é um vídeo dele brincando com as crianças, mas quantas autoridades no mundo de negócios expõem seu lado pessoal? Você precisa expor seu lado pessoal? Você precisa botar um vídeo de você, sei lá, lutando jiu-jitsu, ou fazendo crossfit, ou fazendo qualquer atividade física, ou brincando com seus filhos? Não necessariamente. Mas o que você pode fazer na sua abordagem que você vai se diferenciar da concorrência? Eu acho que essa é a grande reflexão que a gente faz aqui, é um dos desafios que a gente vê, né? A máquina está rodando, a galera está usando Snovio, está gerando base para prospecção, está fazendo cadência, mas e aí? Por que às vezes não está tendo resultado, né? Um insight prático para você que às vezes não está tendo esse resultado prático é justamente esse. Traga esse conceito da pessoalização aí para o teu mercado, né, Giovanni?
Boa, cara, perfeito. Quem está entrando aí agora, a gente, bem-vindos aí, manda aí de onde vocês estão falando, segmento, de onde vocês estão assistindo, né? A gente que está falando, onde vocês estão assistindo, qual que é o segmento das empresas, não é verdade? Essa aí foi uma gafe. E aí, cara, que a gente vai falar, daqui a pouco a gente bota a transmissão aí do Aaron, vai ser bem legal também. E assim, é muito massa isso, porque se for pensar, né, o livro lançou em 2011, é isso, né, Thiago?
Isso,
a primeira versão?
Isso mesmo. Tem 10 anos.
2011, né?
10
então,
anos
cara, quando o Aaron foi lá escrever o primeiro e-mail no modelo que ele estava trabalhando, ninguém conhecia a metodologia Receita Previsível. Hoje, os modelos dele funcionam, mas muito mais para entender a técnica, a metodologia por trás daquilo e não efetivamente, eu vou pegar lá e escrever o que aquele template traz, até porque hoje em dia está cheio de template na internet, né? E outro ponto muito legal que a gente discutiu é a questão da inteligência emocional. Na palestra de antes, aí, o pessoal estava falando que não é fácil ser vendedor, né? E a gente tem que ter muita inteligência emocional para lidar com todas as situações do dia a dia, né, Thiagão? Como é que vocês lidam com isso, em questão até de treinamento? Como que a gente pode desenvolver isso para a galera?
Um ponto importante aí, um dos desafios para você que talvez tenha dificuldade em montar sua máquina de vendas, e aí a gente está tendo vários conteúdos super legais aqui nessa semana, é justamente esse ponto, e você às vezes deixa de lado, que é a inteligência emocional. Por quê? Primeiro porque essa pessoa que vai trabalhar contigo, ela tem que comprar ideia do que é uma metodologia, do que é um processo de vendas, qual que é a importância dele picotar as atividades dele em várias etapas para elas serem mensuráveis e a gente conseguir medir a eficiência. Tem um aspecto técnico e profissional. Só que, cara, se você deixar de lado o lado humano da coisa, também não vai funcionar. Então, a pandemia veio aí para provar para a gente que nada do que a gente sabia até então serve de nada de hoje para frente. Então, ansiedade, depressão, estresse, a carga, o peso psicológico em torno de marketing e vendas nos últimos 2 anos, aí eu acho que não poderia nem dizer que duplicou, acho que foi para a 10ª potência a carga de peso, porque, né, sempre sobra para a área comercial, sempre sobra para a área de marketing. Então, é importante que a gente entenda também como que a gente, quanto gestores, a gente consegue perceber melhorias no processo, ou seja, como que a gente consegue entender, como que a gente dá apoio de forma legal para o nosso time, como que a gente abre um canal aberto para essas pessoas, né? Como que você cria planos de incentivos também para essas pessoas, para fazer com que elas fiquem ali com você, né? Eu sempre falo, né, Giovanni, tem outro webinar que a gente fez recentemente, eu comentei, você tem que bater a real, cara. O seu discurso no LinkedIn tem que ser tão bonito quanto que você fala na reunião quando não está ninguém vendo ali o que você está falando com o seu time. Então, trazer um pouco da realidade também de como que a gente cria um ambiente em que a gente tem temperatura e pressão para a gente discutir e assumir, inclusive, galera, que a gente tem bons dias e maus dias. Nem todo mundo aqui, a gente não é perfeito, né? Segunda-feira todo mundo está estressado, sexta-feira esse horário todo mundo está cansado, nós somos humanos e a pandemia veio para falar disso. O Aaron daqui a pouco vai falar um pouquinho um pouco que a gente tem discutido muito sobre não só a operação brasileira, mas o que a gente tem visto do pós-pandemia, e vai valer a pena também vocês darem uma olhada e anotarem um pouquinho das dicas que a gente tem colhido aí com o Aaron, com o que a gente tem vivenciado aqui também na operação brasileira.
Porque mudou tudo, mudou muito nesses últimos anos, né? E a questão de se reinventar, ela exige muito esforço, né? Sair da inércia ali, mudar o que já está sendo feito, eu acho que exigiu para a galera, e isso vem atrelado de muito estresse, que a gente falou, o time de venda sempre tem muita pressão, alguns segmentos sofreram mais, né? Se a gente for para o digital, pô, isso tem um estresse que é positivo, porque agora a gente tem que aguentar a demanda. E quem está correndo atrás da meta, puto, o cara imagina com 1 ano e pouco correndo atrás da meta, o cara está desesperado, né? E um dos pontos que a gente discutiu, até que o Aaron trouxe, que é muito legal, para solucionar isso é a criatividade. Então a gente não pode mais fazer o mesmo, a gente tem que começar a fazer coisas novas, né? E quais foram alguns aprendizados aí que falou que tiveram vários nessa época de pandemia, em relação à criatividade, que vocês tiveram que se reinventar, e como que tu vê isso?
Eu acho que esse lance da criatividade está muito relacionado na pessoalização ali que a gente fala, principalmente ali, e que a gente tem discutido muito aqui na Receita Previsível, e também o Aaron tem pontuado muito isso comigo, e a gente tem elaborado isso nas nossas abordagens. Cara, falando de criatividade, eu acho que o principal ponto é que quando todo mundo no mercado começa a olhar para os mesmos canais e para as mesmas abordagens, né, proporcionalmente as coisas param de dar resultado. Então, a receita previsível, ela não é uma fórmula pronta, senão seria a fórmula receita previsível e não o método receita previsível, né? A gente sempre costuma dizer que a gente vai ensinar você a fazer um bolo. Agora, se o bolo é de chocolate, de melancia, de integral, de chocolate branco, é sua decisão. Então, o que é o ponto? Você tem que entender que muitas vezes na sua abordagem, você vai ter que mudar algumas coisas, inclusive, que a gente até se propõe a dizer ali dentro do método. Você vai ter que adaptar aquela parte da metodologia para a tua realidade, cara. Não tem jeito, né? Quem está vendo a gente aí que é pequena e média empresa, a gente sabe que não tem como, às vezes, você hoje ter aquela fotografia maravilhosa, né, que você tem um pré-vendedor, o vendedor e o cara de CS, ao mesmo tempo, porque a gente está falando do Brasil, né, em que um custo de um profissional CLT não é barato. E, ao mesmo tempo, a gente também, enquanto gestores, a gente também se cobra muito, porque as remunerações de SDR não são lá essas coisas no Brasil também, por exemplo. Então, assim, gente, tendo um bom senso, a criatividade vem para resolver não só os problemas de abordagem que a gente vai ter, mas também esses problemas de processo, como engaja as pessoas, como mantém elas dentro do processo, como a gente melhora o tempo inteiro, e essas mudanças, elas são positivas e não cansativas. Né? Eu acho que é muito ruim quando a gente fica rodando em testar. Tudo é teste hoje em dia. Mas tem que ter teste, mas também tem que tirar um pouquinho ali. Não pode ser só tirar a coisa da cartola. Tem que ser também você criar soluções criativas para você fazer com que as pessoas se mantenham ativas querendo testar. Eu acho que esse é um primeiro lado que conecta até o emocional com o que a gente falou até aqui. O outro lado ali do criativo, dando uma dica prática para quem está acompanhando a gente, é usar nas suas abordagens, ou testar usando nas suas abordagens, um mapeamento de dores públicas aí, que você consegue pegar do seu cliente. Né? Se você consegue pegar isso no Reclame Aqui, em um vídeo no YouTube, em uma informação de mercado, ou de outras formas também que a gente vai falar um pouquinho mais para frente, usar a palavra aí do seu cliente, usar os conteúdos do seu cliente na sua abordagem e, às vezes, tentar fazer o diferente. Né? Testar abordagens bem distintas. Né? Toda vez que você for testar uma abordagem, tenta fazer testes bem diferentes. Não fica, não, vou trocar aqui o gatilho mental da reciprocidade pela urgência. Cara, simplifica um pouco. Isso tudo é conteúdo para a gente absorver e adaptar. Então, simplifica teu raciocínio, testa coisas bem diferentes, de formas bem diferentes. Uma focada em dores, informações de mercado, outra em insights aí que você pegou com o seu time. Isso, por exemplo, pode ter muito mais resultado do que usar a fórmula pronta.
Cara, muito massa. Até falei num papo que a gente teve mais cedo, a gente fez um teste AB aqui, que era justamente para vendedor. Um e-mail que eu falava, quer se tornar referência do mercado, e aí a gente trazia isso, 44% de abertura, enquanto um outro, onde eu falava, quer gerar mais lead, a gente tinha 76%. Então, tipo, qual que é a dor do cara? O que o cara quer resolver quando ele chega na gente? E agora todo o nosso discurso de vendas a gente muda e a gente aborda muito mais como gerar lead. Claro que a gente tem várias outras ferramentas, mas faz muito sentido, assim, essa questão dos testes, né? A gente não sabe nada até ter dados realmente, né, Thiagão? Cara, mas tudo isso leva tempo. Não é fácil. A gente tá aqui 6 horas. Quem aqui que tá com a gente fechou a mesa às 6 horas da tarde, falou, ó, vou sentar lá, assistir o Aaron, o Giovanni, o Thiagão, tomar uma cervejinha com tudo pronto, nenhuma tarefa atrasada lá no CRM, tudo bonitinho. Então, cara, tudo isso leva tempo. Como lidar com essa gestão do tempo?
Isso é um ponto importante, né, Giovanni? Até porque tem um fato interessante que se a gente está falando de mudar o tempo inteiro e criar e testar, a gente provavelmente vai ter fórmulas que vão funcionar e depois fórmulas que vão parar de funcionar ali na nossa mensagem. E aí tem um ponto interessante que a gente primeiro, acho que como ser humano, a gente entender, né, o que é a minha rotina ideal dentro de uma operação, o que eu posso trazer de liberdade para o meu time, né? Ontem, né, os colegas aqui, acho que da Growth Machine estavam falando que é uma coisa super legal que usam sexta-feira para os estudos. A gente também tem essa prática aqui também, usa principalmente sexta-feira na parte da tarde para esse tipo de ação, e outros colegas também colocaram outros insights bem bacanas. Então, o que eu acho que é o ponto interessante? Você entender primeiro como que você, dentro da tua rotina, você pode separar um tempo para estudar ou tempo para descobrir. Primeiro ponto. Feche blocos na sua agenda específicos para as duas coisas. Para testar e para descobrir. Thiago, o que é testar e descobrir? Testar é isso que a gente acabou de falar até aqui. Pessoalização, uma abordagem A versus uma abordagem B. Isso são experimentos, né? O Lassance também comentou isso, se não me engano. Vários outros profissionais falaram aqui sobre esses pontos. E, do outro lado, a gente tem também ali ter um espaço específico para aprender. Então, como você absorve conteúdo? Qual que é a melhor forma de você absorver conteúdo? Você já parou para pensar que a gente, às vezes, a gente absorve conteúdo de um jeito que não é o melhor para a gente entender alguma coisa? Por exemplo, para eu poder absorver o conteúdo de algum livro, eu tenho que fazer mapa mental, eu tenho que escrever, desenhar, ou dar alguma aula sobre aquilo. É a forma que eu encontrei de aprender. Então, cada um de nós aqui, a gente tem dentro da rotina da gente, gatilhos para a gente também aprender a melhorar otimizar o nosso tempo. O Aaron fala muito isso. Ele tem muito tempo direcionado para a família, né? Quem não sabe, o Aaron trabalha aí, né? Ou pretende sempre trabalhar 25 horas por semana, e isso é uma coisa super legal. Então, ele ocupa o tempo dele com muita energia dentro das atividades que ele precisa fazer ao longo do tempo. E um ponto interessante é você também se conhecer nesse sentido, né? O Giovanni mesmo, ele tem a rotina dele ali que ele para na hora do almoço para fazer uma atividade física. Eu gosto de fazer bem cedo de manhã, e isso me ajuda a pensar melhor, a me organizar melhor. Então, primeiro, esse lado pessoal, acho que é muito importante você, tanto do seu lado do trabalho, quanto coisas fora do trabalho, né? Eu acho que a pandemia mostra pra gente que não tem muito como dissociar uma coisa da outra. Agora, vamos falar de termo prático: operação, sua máquina de vendas rodando, funcionando e gerando mais leads também. Quais são as dicas práticas que a gente pode dar aqui para vocês em relação à gestão de tempo, né? Primeiro ponto aqui: vendedor muitas vezes se perde na hora de documentar a informação. Então, é importante que você tire um tempo para revisar o quanto vocês estão dentro da operação de vocês documentando os aprendizados. Playbook não é um Word que vai ficar salvo no seu Drive. Playbook é um organismo vivo. Então, quanto tempo você disponibiliza para atualizar as informações do que você está pegando na prática? Segundo ponto: separe janelas de tempo específicas para fazer atividades internas e atividades externas. Isso vai te ajudar a evitar que você bloqueie a sua agenda em momentos em que talvez você não esteja tão produtivo. Eu, por exemplo, sou mais produtivo na parte da manhã. Eu evito reunião na manhã e faço mais reuniões na parte da tarde. É o tempo que eu tiro para fazer as análises, para discutir alguma coisa aqui com ela, discutir alguma coisa da operação dos nossos clientes. Então, esse é um ponto muito importante. Entenda a sua rotina e o quanto na sua realidade isso pode ser aplicável ou não. Por exemplo, a gente tem uma SDR aqui no time que ela adora fazer relatório de noite. Eu falei, beleza, a Mayara pode fazer relatório de noite, mas, cara, então chega mais tarde, sai mais cedo, tira um horário de almoço maior, né? Dê um pouco de liberdade também para as pessoas. Eu acho que queria ser leveza. Todo mundo tem que criar um senso de responsabilidade. E um outro ponto é você ajudar as pessoas a serem autogerenciáveis. Algumas táticas para você fazer isso. Para você que tem um time maior, né, com mais pessoas dentro da equipe, faça aquela rotina de ter treinamentos e eleja uma pessoa semanalmente para dar um treinamento. Um dia vai ser o Thiago, outro dia vai ser a Maiara, outro dia vai ser o Ero, outro dia vai ser o Giovanni, porque essas pessoas têm que puxar a fila para manter aquela rotina de se manter ativa, né? Então, essas são algumas habilidades, acho que práticas que ajudam a gente a controlar a nossa rotina. Fora o clichê que vocês encontram aí na primeira página do Google, né? Pomodoro, colocar o alarme no celular, tirar a notificação do celular, né? Bloquear a notificação no computador, entender mecanismos que te concentram. Por exemplo, eu gosto de ouvir música clássica ou metal pesado para poder fazer análises profundas. Então, assim, cada um vai encontrar o seu jeito aí. Mas, pessoal, individual, em equipe, acho que essas são as práticas aí mais simples que você pode colocar em prática para você não se perder nisso tudo, né? E aí tem um último ponto, né, Giovanni, que é com relação a beleza, como que eu vou fazer essa pessoalidade aí que o Aaron vai falar um pouquinho daqui a pouco? Está muito relacionado aí ao último item, que é as entrevistas, né?
Cara, exatamente. Não tem, acho que não tem como ter resultado sem fazer pesquisa, né, Thiago? Eu tinha no BJJ Nerd, já falei na outra palestra, quem não conhece aí, BJJ Nerd, era um canal de jiu-jitsu que a gente tinha. A gente era uma plataforma tipo Netflix do jiu-jitsu, e a gente queria vender sem fazer pesquisa. Eu vejo que hoje esse foi um dos nossos maiores erros. Eu vejo que a gente tentava vender o que a gente achava legal e, na verdade, a gente descobriu depois que era uma coisa completamente diferente. A gente pivotou para uma pegada diferente, para um nicho específico, para um público específico. E ali eu lembro que isso mudou muito, assim, foi pegando o telefone, ligando e falando com o cliente. Como que tu vê essa questão aí da pesquisa, Thiagão? Como que vocês fazem pesquisa, né? E quão recorrente é isso?
Muito bom, cara. E é isso que você falou, né, galera? A gente não tem hoje o tempo não dá para a gente ter mais adivinhação aí para a gente ter resultado. Como que a gente faz pesquisa hoje aqui na Receita Previsível, galera? Primeiro, tem uma etapa lá do nosso processo que é definir o perfil ideal de cliente, que vocês já ouviram muitos palestrantes falar sobre isso. Não vou aqui ser redundante, mas que é a gente olhar para dentro da nossa carteira e tentar fazer ali um público semelhante a essas pessoas da internet. Então, o que eu vou tentar procurar, né? Seja na internet ou no ambiente físico? Eu vou procurar características que motivaram elas a levantar a mão para a gente, dores que elas tinham, benefícios que elas procuravam, né? E aí, eu vou entender de uma forma mais qualitativa, né? Pode ser por uma entrevista por videoconferência, pode ser uma entrevista presencial, pode ser um questionário. Eu prefiro fazer em loco ali, né? Ou videoconferência, fazendo perguntas mais abertas, né? Quem estiver começando, quem ainda não tem prática com fazer pesquisa, faz perguntas mais específicas. Pega 3, 4 benefícios que a sua solução traz, né? E valida o momento da dor, qual que foi a motivação para a pessoa te procurar e qual que é o benefício que ela te percebeu no teu discurso. Esses são os pontos principais para você entender quais são as características que aquela pessoa tem e como você vai procurar isso no mercado. Outra coisa legal também é você não ficar na sua bolha. Procura pessoas que poderiam comprar a tua solução, dá uma ligada para elas, fala que você está realmente fazendo uma pesquisa. No final, não tem problema nenhum você fazer um pitch de vendas, mas a gente tem que mapear as necessidades que esses caras têm, porque tem um outro ponto, né? Nesse mercado que muda o tempo todo, pode ser que aquele perfil de cliente dentro da sua base, ele corresponda a uma necessidade que atualmente mudou naquele mesmo mercado. A gente frequentemente vê esse tipo de ação acontecer. O motivo que um cliente contrata um software de RP há 1 ano atrás pode ser totalmente diferente do motivo que ele vai contratar hoje. O que eu estou querendo dizer? As motivações vão ser diferentes. É o mesmo software, as mesmas funcionalidades. Mas uma funcionalidade ano passado, por exemplo, poderia ser economia devido ao cenário de pandemia. Nesse momento, pode ser, por exemplo, otimizar um processo para poder se preparar para uma retomada de mercado, sei lá, entendeu? Então, fazer pesquisas de forma constante sobre o que o teu cliente percebeu, quais são as dores que ele tinha, quais benefícios ele percebe, te ajuda o tempo inteiro a modular o teu discurso para você ter o melhor pitch de vendas, ter o melhor discurso de CS e preparar teu pré-vendedor também para mapear as dores de uma forma mais assertiva. Então, se eu pudesse dar uma dica prática final, seria essa. E tem uma surpresa. O Aaron vai falar um pouquinho sobre isso de uma forma mais profunda já para a gente.
Boa, galera. Tiagão, porra, incrível aqui mais uma vez, um bate-papo muito massa. A gente prometeu que a gente ia ser o mais breve possível, porque eu sei que a galera, 6 horas da tarde, está aqui querendo aprender, pô, muito massa. O Gabriel, tem uma galera aí que está desde das palestras de antes também. Meu pai aí está quase em todas as palestras nesse evento também. Tem o pessoal da CQ Produtora. Cara, os nossos vídeos no YouTube aí, todos os vídeos foram feitos pelo pessoal, o Gabriel aqui da CQ. Sangue bom demais. Se alguém estiver em Florianópolis aí ou para qualquer lugar do Brasil, pode mandar mensagem que eu tenho certeza que ele vai ajudar vocês. E agora chegou a hora então, né, Tiagão? Vamos colocar
Perfeito.
aí o Aaron. Muito obrigado, pô, demais aí, Tiagão, para a gente fechar, quase fechando a sexta-feira. Feliz demais de ter aqui. A gente vai ter mais uma programação ainda, né, da Receita Previsível. O Tiagão vai fazer uma mentoria exclusiva aqui para os nossos clientes, né? Isso a gente está planejando ainda, vai ser a primeira mentoria para os clientes novos no Brasil. E aí, pô, tem muita coisa para fazer junto aí. Brigadão demais por topar participar desse evento com a gente.
Giovanni, obrigado você pelo convite. Agradecer a todos que acompanharam a gente até aqui. Eu acho que é uma fala muito rápida do Aero, mas uma fala que traz muita realidade do que a gente tem visto tanto aqui no Brasil quanto no mundo. Então, acho que vai ser enriquecedor para todo mundo que está aqui. Dar os parabéns para todos os palestrantes que participaram do evento. Acompanhei todos os conteúdos, foram conteúdos muito ricos. E se preparem aí que vai vir aí uma das primeiras parcerias aí das novas com a Receita Previsível, que vai ser essa mentoria exclusiva para quem precisa botar a mão na massa, né, para tirar do papel a metodologia, transformá-la em processo e usar aí a tecnologia do Giovanni aí das Snovio, que é uma ferramenta incrível aí que a gente sempre recomenda aqui na Receita Previsível. @Receita Previsível no Instagram, no LinkedIn, @Thiago FTM no Instagram e no LinkedIn. São nossos contatos aí, se vocês quiserem bater um papo, tirar uma dúvida, fiquem à vontade. Pessoal, deixar vocês aí agora com o Aaron. Aproveitem e qualquer dúvida podem me procurar, que a gente faz a ponte aí também, entende como que a gente pode ajudar vocês. Grande abraço.
Valeu, galera. Obrigadão. Um abraço.
Abraço.
Good evening. Really great to have Aaron here. Today we're going to have a recorded webinar and we're going to put subtitles so everybody can interact and can see our webinar since this is being done in Portuguese. For me, it's a great pleasure to have Aaron here. He's the author of Predictable Revenue and one of the biggest references when we speak about sales worldwide. And it's been really great to speak with Thiago from Predictable Revenue here in Brazil and learning straight from the source. It's going to be really fun and I have some good questions. So thank you very much, Aaron.
Yeah, happy to be here.
So yeah, to start with now, we just spoke about Florianópolis and you told me that you came here in 2019, right before the pandemic started. So how do you think that the pandemic changed how the companies want to implement predictable revenue?
Well, I don't think it hasn't really changed how they want to implement predictable revenue. It's pretty much changed everything else, though, right? And that we haven't even really seen the scope of changes because they're really just, it's like this. I don't know, what's something that bubbles under the surface. You don't really see it. You thought you saw it, but you didn't really see it, and it's still bubbling under the surface. You know, even with the lockdowns the last year and a half, and maybe we'll have some more. Like obviously, incredible world trauma, an incredible world opportunity. But something I've seen happen is for I don't know how many millions of people or hundreds of millions of people, it shifted a lot of people in how they want to work and realizing like their dissatisfaction with the way their lives were. And so I think in one example is like, do they want to work remote or at home? And everyone's still, or with the people they're with, and or with their kids at home or spouse at home or not. And like, there's still this uncertainty. There's still this anxiety because we don't know what's happening, right? And so people are still looking for like safety. Like, do I have predictable revenue? Do I have like a reliable, like relationships or friends or places where I can feel kind of safe? And so there are other things affecting the way people actually implement, like outbound prospecting, or building sales teams. But the thing to really understand is that this underlying, I call it like an emotional pandemic or an energy pandemic that is not really obvious. It's starting, some people, if you look for it, you'll see it. But it really is, that's gonna be a much bigger effect on business and growth and money than the actual COVID pandemic was.
Okay, yeah, and it makes a lot of sense. One thing that you spoke about is what drives people to want to do things. And nowadays, at least here in Brazil, it's really difficult to retain talents. When you look into sales perspective, I have a few new SDRs here, and they already, like, they're not even 2 months in Snovio, and they already got two proposals. So it happens very often. And how do you feel that you can make your the people that work with you want to stay working with you, and what do you think that they value the most?
Well, they said one of the obvious changes is all the remote opportunities. All right, so no matter where you are, you have the opportunity to work with a lot more. You're not trapped. That's the opportunity. The challenge is working remotely with people has an emotional cost. And it takes a while to get used to it, right? Because you're not with people. Like, I think a lot we've seen is that when you're with people, like in person, you can get energy from that. And when you're just by yourself, it can be, and everyone's different, right? I live with a lot of kids, right? I live in Edinburgh. Normally we have anywhere from like 6 to 8 children, right? I was not lonely last year, right? I might have other challenges, but a lot of people live alone or with one person. And so they have to sort of start to become more emotionally aware and energy aware. So emotional intelligence is going to be far more important. I mean, it's already been recognized as something that's important, but it's going to far outstrip kind of like school intelligence in the future, right? Because this is, well, what do I want to do? How do I feel good? How am I working with people? I might see them in person, but I might just be seeing them on Zoom. And that creates a whole other set of challenges around working with people that I don't see in person. And I think, again, if you're a company and a manager, really ensuring, like, how can you know yourself and how can you work with your team to create kind of those connections so that you trust each other and you like each other. Because the people you work with are going to have the ability to go out and get higher paying jobs if they want to, right? Like they never could have before, like whether it's in Brazil or the States or Europe, like they'll have that. You cannot rely on them having to stay in one sort of geographic location with a fixed amount of salary. So if you really want to maintain people, you have to focus on how can I have them feel good. And it's not your job, like they have their own job around what they need to do for their happiness and their growth. It's not even happiness, it's really growth. So if I'm a manager or a leader or a teammate, like how can I treat myself well so I feel like I'm doing well and I've got enthusiasm? And how can I connect with my teammates so we all feel good together as a team? Because that will be stronger for the right people than someone who can just get a higher paying job someplace else.
Nice, it makes a lot of sense. The humane aspect enters very strong. We have, for us now, I never met Alexi, that is our CEO, and he's in Ukraine because I started here during the pandemic. So this is something that for us is a reality, and it's a great opportunity because Snovio couldn't have the operation here. But of course, it has its challenges, and it's really good to have this understanding. And one thing that you spoke about, now you have a lot of kids, and I saw a lot of interviews from you, and at some point I think you had 12, right? Or
yeah, there are 10 children, and we fostered some others, but I like to say, yeah, we just have like a shitload of kids.
Nice.
Original number.
And what drives you now? What motivates you? Because it's a different day to day than you had in Salesforce, I believe.
Yeah, very. What drives me? It's not a single thing. Obviously, there is one part of that is there is a financial drive, right? Big family means I have to make a lot of money. I don't really have an option. I like to say I worked early at Salesforce.com, but not early enough to make much money there. So I have to, I'm like you, but everyone else, like I got to make money. That's one. Another one is just being like having a family and being married is the most motivating thing for me to be just a better person, right? Whether it's a better husband, father, entrepreneur, person, because I'm surrounded by people who need me and who help show me kind of what I'm good at, but also what I'm not good at, get better at. And because I care about them so much, like it's motivation. Like I want to be, because I'm not perfect like everyone else. I got my flaws. How can I be better every day, every month? And honestly, it feels like a slow process as a human to do that. So those are two things. And the third is part of it too, is like, well, how can I feel good about my days and myself? Because again, big family and like, you know, having, if you're a CEO of a business, there's a lot of parallels. It's not the same, but that I as a parent often like treat myself last. You know, CEOs often kind of take care of themselves last because there's so many other things that need to be done. And for a certain amount of time, I could do that, right? Or I can just tough it out. But at some point, and I got to that point the last couple of years, I'm out of gas, we'd say in the States, right? I'm toast, or expressions for like, I'm dragging. I don't actually know what, I don't know what you would literally say, like just out of energy. Right? And every day just was waking up and like really hard because I didn't really take care. It was hard to learn how to take care of myself. And again, sometimes I just couldn't when we had 2 babies and 5 kids in school and this and the other, and sleep was really hard to get and exercise is really hard to get. And so that's the thing these days too, is like, how can I take care of myself so I feel good, so I have enthusiasm? And in fact, it's kind of like I would say the thing I most think about in terms of new ventures that I'm working on now is how can CEOs, starting at the top, like CEOs and CROs, feel energized and enthusiastic about what they're doing. It's not whether it's even at work, because if you're enthusiastic about your life outside work, that's going to it's going to bring your enthusiasm to work and vice versa. Because if they can feel good about what they're doing and excited, that's going to be inspire their teams and so on. And so it's not something, I think for a lot of years, at least in the States, we talk about, oh, you have to treat your employees well. And it didn't really happen. But the pandemic and lockdown has changed things again, where we have to start doing that to maintain a business success. Because if we don't, and I see this, we're not going to have like the team we want. We're not going to get the results we want. We're not going to have the customer relationships we want. We can't go on just working harder to solve problems.
Yeah. And that's a great insight, because it's not specifically for one position, but it's let's say a life lesson. I believe if you always want to have energy, want to grow and be a better person, that's a great way to live in. And yeah, looking more a little bit into our process at Snovio, we have a lot of businessmen that are trying to hire their first SDR. Do you feel that we have a minimum leads volume that makes sense for this first hiring process?
In terms of like number of candidates to look at?
No, I mean, like, let's say we here in Snovio, we have an SDR here qualifying our leads, but we have 50 to 70 leads a day coming in. It's from an inbound funnel.
Okay, I got you. Well, okay, so the term SDR, one of the biggest sources of confusion is we really need 2 different terms. We need like LDR, like a lead development rep for inbound leads, and BDR for outbound prospecting. Or you could say inbound SDR, outbound SDR, because they're 2 different jobs. That is not the same job. There's so many differences, but it gets lumped together because it kind of looks similar. It's kind of like if you had a vanilla cake and you had I don't know, what's not
Okay.
A watermelon, I don't know, something like a rutabaga, like a broccoli cake.
Okay.
I don't know. But they had the same coating of icing on the outside. So they look the same, but once you cut it open, it's completely different.
Okay.
Anyway, from the inbound side, there again, there's not like a single answer that is correct, because with inbound leads, there's such a wide variety of quality. You could have, I will give you an answer, but just to preface it, which is you could have 2,000 leads a month. They're all from webinars, and there's only a very small percentage that makes sense to talk to. You could have 100 leads a month. They're all like high quality demo requests. So those could be the same amount of work. But generally like 400 leads, inbound leads a month that need to be looked at by a human. Again, so like, okay, if you can kind of auto delete this, if there's around 400 or 20 a day that need to be looked at by a human, it's about one person's, that's like my baseline for the amount of work for one LDR, lead development rep, handling those inbound leads.
Okay, nice. And for outbound leads?
Outbound leads, again, you could have an outbound prospector who's reaching out to 5 strategic accounts a month. Okay. You could have an outbound prospector reaching out to, but somewhere between like 300 to 800 kind of new contacts, new people to reach out to a month is, again, a good baseline. And again, that can vary a lot based on how much research, personalization, like you need to do. If you have, one large account, like one big company with 50 people, you can kind of do the research one. You still need to understand like the different divisions versus you have 50 companies and they're all different companies. But, I would say like for predictable revenue, it's internal. So 550 kind of contacts a month is a base, the starting number. So it's not 100 and it's not 1,000, but I know some companies do a lot more than that. Like everything else, like the way the world changed is we're not in the zone of copy paste success anymore. There's too much variety. There's too much confusion. You can't just say, I'm going to copy what this person does. You can copy it and start it but you got to make it your own. It's kind of like cookbooks. There are a million cookbooks. Which one is right for you? I don't know. You don't know. You can't just, I can't say, hey, dude, you got to try some of it and see what works for you. That's just the world we're in. And so I don't have another term, but I know copy paste success doesn't work. You got to have like copy paste and then still figure out yourself success.
Nice.
There's no shortcuts. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, it makes sense. And we can understand that from your experience, there was no shortcut as well. You worked a lot and that's how you got the results, right? And one thing that is really important, I believe, is to have metrics and to check the process, right? And see what is actually working. And one of the first tools that we use is a CRM. So Salesforce is a good example. When small companies want to implement, let's say, Salesforce, what do you see it's the biggest issues that they face?
Well, again, there's a lot of CRMs today. Yeah. If you're a small company, let's say that you're a micro company, you've got like 5 people total, or maybe there's just 2 people on a CRM, and you might be in Brazil. Salesforce for a lot of people is not the right start at that point. It could be like if you have experience with Salesforce and you're comfortable, I would just go with Salesforce. Like saving some money, like the cost of figuring out a new system isn't worth saving some money a month for that level. If you're starting from scratch, you've never used a CRM, I would just ask your friends for like what they know, because again, if you can find someone who can kind of guide you, it'll just make it easier. It's like the cost of the time and energy to figure out a system, you got to weigh that into the price. As you get bigger, a lot of companies, most companies move to salesforce.com at some point as they get bigger. And I don't have a number, whether it's like 20 salespeople or 50 salespeople. But the reason, and it's not the only solution, like HubSpot is popular. I'm not as familiar with actually RD. Obviously RD is popular for a lot of things, but I think what's interesting is that usually what happens, Salesforce.com today is still probably usually the most popular system, not just because of the technology, which it has a lot, too much, some people would say. It's because there's so much familiarity with it. So many people have used it. So many people have implemented it. So again, I think what a lot of companies look at is just how much is this going to cost? and they don't really take a look at how much, they look at how much is it going to cost in money? What's the price? Okay, that's important. But they don't really look at what's the price in the time and energy and uncertainty of actually figuring this out and rolling it out. They try it, they don't really take that cost. And so if you have your team, or there's partners or people in your community that are very knowledgeable about a system, it might be HubSpot, it might be RD, it might be Salesforce, you have to give yourself a lot of extra points, like reasons to go with that system, just because you know people who've used it, and you can shorten the kind of time to value cost. Like, do you really want to spend 3 to 6 months rolling out and tuning the system if you could do it in 45 days or 30 days? Like, so I think that is more important, at least just as important as the actual price of the system, that people they tend to gloss over because they're so focused on money, short-term money.
Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense. We in Snovio have the same issue when someone is learning the platform. They have at least 2 or 3 months to actually have a good understanding. And
that's just so, and that's typical, right? We have an overwhelming world. People are trying to do too many things. The remote stuff has just exacerbated, right? This energy depression, like this energy emotional pandemic. People have less energy to do these big projects that are complicated, and so that's that. Again, I think that is actually the much bigger challenge underneath the surface, like the iceberg, like that's interrupting people's companies, businesses, and plans. I don't have a better term, emotional pandemic or energy pandemic.
Nice. And that is the same issue that you think companies would find when implementing predictable revenue with the CRM. It's basically the same thing, like having to learn the full methodology and taking the time to actually get the results, because it's not everything in life. I train jiu-jitsu and I love jiu-jitsu, and you get the early understanding of the martial art after 6 months of training. So it's a long process. It's always very rewarding, and I believe in predictable revenue is the same. So is it
kind of like anything?
Yeah. So it's pretty much, you feel the same challenge, the learning curve and everything.
Yeah, and I think it is, and even more important is the more insight it's really about insights too. And it always was, but more than ever around what's a good fit for you as a person or as a company. Especially, well, even more importantly for software companies. Right. So John, if you had to describe the ideal customer for Snovio, did I say that right?
Yeah.
Just checking. It's not for your company, and this is why this is the #1 section of the Previsível book in Brazil, or in the States, it's called From Impossible to Inevitable, is don't try to sell to everyone. Like, there's sales, who really is the best, who would get the most value from you? Like, how would you describe that type of company?
We usually now are going to tech companies, software companies with over 20 people in the team. Usually we need 3 or more people in their sale process, because then they'll go to a higher plan. And we're developing this in Brazil. Agencies, marketing agencies as well. It's a niche that we are going. We're choosing these two, and
And by the way, even having something like that, kind of like a functional or vertical niche like marketing agencies, makes it that much easier for you and for them to say, oh, hey, that could be a good fit for us. So kind of like this, we call it nailing a niche, is one of the, I don't know if it's but it's like one of the vital steps towards success, which is being more specific, more selective around what's a good fit for you, and not trying to sell to everyone, because you just kind of scatter your energy everywhere, especially in a busy world where everything is crowded and everything's competitive and just overwhelming.
Yeah. And for us, it makes a lot of sense, like learning from your methodology. We got the people that we actually didn't want to spend time with. So since we have a lot of leads, that was a big learning experience, and we are having better results, because for us, it's, let's say, marketing agencies, but not even all marketing agencies. Mostly the ones that work with growth, performance, lead generation. And this is something that is really good, and we are having a better process here based on these learnings. And what do you see? One big point here that we get a lot in Snovio is how to actually prospect the niche, because we usually start with one, But where do you see the future of prospecting going? How do you think that it will change from what we've been doing the past years?
Well, a lot of the way that's been working will just be more the same, right? But in this overwhelm, this noise, the busyness is going to be spreading everywhere. And so, yeah, people will be sending emails and making phone calls, and phone calls still work really well. But you're reaching out to, more often than ever, you're reaching out to people who are getting a lot of other stuff like yours. I don't know in the United States, I don't know what the average number of emails and phone calls an executive gets is, but I'm gonna like per day, let's just pick, I'm gonna say 100. I actually don't know what it is. And let's say in Brazil, the average executive might get, in terms of phone calls and emails today, let's just pick like 40. But because the States tends to be like the busiest, but then it trickles down, right? So as the number of messages come in, it doesn't matter what they are. Like if I'm an executive, I'm just getting lots of stuff. It could be around like weight loss pills, or it doesn't matter what it is. There's just you with your message, you have more competition for their attention. So that is going to continue to happen. What that means is you need to be more selective around what kind of company, what kind of person, and what's your message, and more persistent. And when you have someone as a company and team that you really feel is a good fit, just to continue to reach out to them and being more, this phrase yesterday, actually my teen said this, it's in music, right? You don't have to be good, you just have to be different. All right. So that would be a rallying cry, I would say, for anyone doing prospecting, and even maybe marketing, which is, there's so much good marketing, there's so much good prospecting. It all blends together into this lump of grayness, blah, blah, blah. So if you're excellent, you stand out. If you're just weird, you stand out. So I'd rather you be weird, but not very good, than good and not very weird.
Yeah, and it makes a lot of, yeah, because we have a lot of templates ready now that you can download, and a bunch of people will receive the same. And
just Google cold email template. I mean, yeah, it's all. And again, when you're just copying and pasting other people's stuff, it's the same as everyone else's stuff, and it doesn't stand out.
And what do you feel is the main points to stand out? How do you write an email or try to make a call to stand out?
Well, if I had a solution, it probably wouldn't work because everyone else would do it. So I think this is one of these frustrating areas where I gotta say, like, I can give you some examples, but you just kind of gotta be your own weird. You have to do your own thing. And then people think like, well, what's my own thing? Like, that's what you gotta figure out. I can't tell you what your thing is. Like, you need to figure out what your style is, whether it's your, like the way you write, the way, like that's you. I can't tell you that.
Yeah.
So something like what I do, obviously having a big family is one of my things, right? And that it bleeds into stuff. I don't know, I write my emails lowercase. That's different. Some people put pictures in, some people write songs. So, I haven't sent any for a while, but I have a signet ring my wife gave me. I think it's just fun to write a letter and put a wax stamp on it.
Right.
In person, sending stuff, there's so many ways people can express themselves in their own version of what they do. So that's kind of what you got to figure out, what your own unique genius is, and your own voice and your own style that you can combine. So there's all the templates and things you can read online and listen to. And there's that's you can copy all that stuff. You can, again, this kind of nailing a niche, which is really practice. How insightful can you be about the right kinds of companies and what they want, right? If you haven't read the Hypercrecimento book, that is the #1 book you got to start with. And then so that's all stuff you can copy the channels and what people do, but you can't copy the message and you can't copy the personality.
Yeah. And it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, now we are speaking a lot about personalization, right? About personalizing, and it takes more time, but and that's something that you speak in your book a lot. We have a different perspective, when we go to outbound leads, we search for higher average tickets, and that's some of the points that you think it makes sense to take more time into personalizing, take more time into doing, let's say, social selling, understanding the lead, and it will have a better, let's say, a better outcome, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's part of it. Personalization is part of it. It's important. It's not the only thing, because personalization, and this is further out, you know, over the next years. I really have no idea, because one thing I can tell you is I can tell you what will happen. I can tell you when. Personalization will still just get as busy as templates. Like if I'm getting 10 emails a day that are all personalized, but they kind of sound the same, it's not, then it doesn't matter anymore, right? It's still all in this general buzz of stuff. So at the same time, another thing you can do, there's personalization, and that's different than adding personality.
Right.
Adding personality is this, you know, is there a writing style? Is there like a certain like sign off you do? Do you add a picture? Do you do a video? Do you like, how can you put your own unique genius, your voice into your communication, whether it's in person, here we're looking at LinkedIn or emails or phone calls. Do you have a certain like tone of voice? What are the things that make you unique, that you can add your personality to what you're broadcasting or saying, so that you stand out, that you uniquely stand out, in addition to the techniques you're putting into place? Because all the techniques will get commoditized. That's just the way it goes. But you can commoditize yourself if you stay, you know, what they say in Japan, like the nail that stands out gets hammered, right? And, you know, most of us in the schooling systems and societies tend to commoditize our people. And so you still have to, most people have to relearn how to like find your own like path in life, and so unique genius and style and tone, and ways that you can express yourself here at work that are interesting and helpful and engaging people, and not like there's kind of good weird and there's like weird here. Yeah. So you're looking for the right kind of signal that says, hey, you're interesting, you're confident, you've got, you know, just different, and not you're scary.
Yeah. Okay.
But you know, that's fine. That's part of the experimentation. And more people you find is, yeah, like everything else, when you're doing something that's you, and maybe you have blue hair, like I can't remember the guy's name. Some people like color their hair, because on LinkedIn, like that's, I don't know, there's just backgrounds. That's why there's a lot of ways you can be weird. And a lot of it, here's like if there was a technique I would give you, Elsa and Anna said it best. They said, into the unknown, if you've seen Frozen 2. And I can't remember the whole song, but I remember crying to this song, listening to the words. But they say there's 1,000 little whispers that I'm gonna kind of make. There's 1,000 little whispers as I go about my day. Basically, we have all these little whispers, and at the same. This is why, like, this word for years, like whispers, that I should do this, travel, try this, wear that, but you know, and we ignore because it's kind of scary, different. I don't understand. Like, why would I go travel? Why would I do ayahuasca? Why would I go start a company? Why would I quit this job? It's too, like, it's scary. And if you start to listen to those, like, that's one of the ways, like, you want to cut your hair, like, you want to color your hair blue, why not? You know, I have a 7-year-old daughter who wanted to like shave half her head, and it's like, yeah. Right. If you're a boy who wants to wear a dress, or a girl, you know, it's like all those things, like you got to start listening to those and try some. That is really, I mean, if there's one like technique or tactic, that would be it, honestly. Like, what are those things that you've kind of thought about or wanted to do and you just put off because it's not practical? And they come and go very subtly in the back of your head, and they're easy to miss. So that's when you got to tune into those little whispers as you go about your day and listen to them and try them.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it's a great insight. Be yourself, right?
Yeah, which people say that, and they've said that for thousands of years. And it's just, we have a new challenge. Like every generation, there's a different challenge of how to be yourself. Like, why aren't you yourself changes? How do you be yourself changes? Yeah, and that's gonna be the same thing in the future too. It's just how we do that changes.
Yeah. And now that you spoke about the future and you told me before.
Sorry, John, I got to give you an example. Like, who has 10 kids, really?
Yeah.
Okay, examples around like, it just kind of whispers and we just felt right. Seriously. There are lots of people, but in metropolitan areas, like in Los Angeles, we never, or in Edinburgh, I've never, like, and there's lots of families in the United States that have 20 kids, but not in cities. It's just, and we're not religious. So, you know, what's your version of that? Johnny, what's something you want to do that you think is weird? You think would be weird? You just like, I don't know. People are going to think I'm weird if I do this.
Yeah. As I told you before, I think I graduated here in business school in Brazil, and my family has a big background on owning their own businesses. And when I finished school, I decided to move to the United States and to train jiu-jitsu, teach jiu-jitsu to kids, and go into a completely different perspective. After when the pandemic started, I came back to Brazil and I decided to go back to marketing. I really love this as well because it's a strategy. I like this part, and for me, it creates. It's really fun. I really enjoy doing this, and it gives me time to train jiu-jitsu. So a few things that I do, I have my training on. I used to train every day, but now I have the competition training on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I take my 2 hours off during lunch and I go there and I train. So that's some stuff that, it's different. Let's say, you have to work from 8 to 9. Now we work home office with people from Ukraine. For my mom, if you speak like 10 years ago, that would be something like out of this world. But now it makes sense and it's completely different, right?
Yes. Yeah, it's a great way to do it too. If you have like a hobby, I struggle with my hobbies. I kind of have them. I'm still not there and being as diligent. Like, that's a great example. Like jiu-jitsu, like find a way to keep that up because you can always get things from that. And whether you blend, this is where like you don't have to like bring jiu-jitsu to work. Like you don't have to write emails where you're using jiu-jitsu terms or karate terms or like putting a little like black belt in your emoticon in. You can. Maybe it's just like the language you speak in. Maybe it's like the energy you bring. Like there's a lot of ways to kind of blend marketing and jiu-jitsu. There's a lot of ways. And you might do it like right now, you're just sharing stories. You're already doing it. We're talking about jiu-jitsu and how do you like, wow, I don't even know what that looks like. Like how do you do competition? How long you been there's all these, it's interesting to learn about people's hobbies. That's something I've thought about doing is an interview series, talking to probably starting with executives, but like, I want to know about their hobbies, honestly. Yeah. Partly because I want my own hobby. So we're always interested in things we want for ourselves. So that's actually, one other technique was if you're trying to like kind of find yourself in your own voice in your own, or you start a company, one of the best things you can do is start an interview series. That doesn't have to look like a Zoom call. It could be like going to places, talking to people. It could be an interview series. But, I tell my kids, if you want to start a restaurant or whatever the business is you want to do, two things. These two things come to mind. One is go talk to other people who started restaurants. Whether you call it an interview or not, maybe it's just whatever. Go talk to people who've done what you want to do, or you're doing what you're interested in. Again, it could be like painting, jiu-jitsu, whatever. That's one. And the other thing is get a job in a restaurant. Like if you want to start a restaurant, you're not going to know how it works unless you get a job in it, whether it's waiting tables in the back or manager or whatever, bookkeeper. Like you can get paid to learn whatever the job is. If you think about it that way, which is I need to learn how that business works. A marketing business, a restaurant, a nail salon, a PR agency. So how can I get a job? Even if like I went to Salesforce as the lowest level salesperson they had, that's all they had. They're like answering the 800 line, like the LDR job. And they're like, I need to learn how this works. I'm going to get paid to learn, not very much, but I went from being CEO to this super junior job, but I need to learn this. So that's something else can be very, very powerful for you, is just realizing how can I go talk to people who are doing what I'm interested in doing or get a job doing what I want to learn, whatever, and leave my ego at the door, which I can.
Nice. I did. I had a company in a startup that it was a kind of a jiu-jitsu Netflix. So I had this opportunity to speak and interview a bunch of my idols. And when I came to Snovio doing the webinars, one of the main reasons is at least it's a personal achievement to get to speak and ask questions like we are doing right now and understand how you think, understand how you feel. For me, that's very rewarding. It's a great learning experience, and it makes completely sense.
Yeah. In fact, there's a book coming out. I don't remember the title, but I know the guy's name. There's a guy named Andrew Warner who's done a ton of interviews, and he's written a book on basically I think it's, I know, it's called Stop Asking Questions.
Oh, okay. Right.
But his name is Andrew Warner. So anyone, I don't know his techniques very well, but I know him, and he's done a lot of interviews. So that'd be, I'm sure, a good way to get started if people think like, oh, I want to do that, but like, where do I start? What do I do? It's probably a really good starting point.
Nice. Good. And how do you see the future? How do you see how we will recover from the pandemic? I know that in the United States, the vaccination is a little bit more fast forward than here, but now we have a lot of people. How do you think we're gonna be in a year or two?
Oh, I mean, fuck if I know.
No idea. Yeah.
No, I have no idea. I mean, look, there could be more lockdowns, may or may not. Like, I don't know. I think we've been through the worst part in one sense, which is the lockdown where no one knew it was happening. We had to adapt everything. Okay, so like that was the worst part. And now we know, okay, locking down schools and remote schooling, not even gonna do it. Not even worth it. So we kind of, if whatever happens, I feel like as a world, we're better prepared to deal with what happens. So I'm not worried about that. It's not going to feel good, and it's going to there'll be disruption, but not like it was last year, the same way, where we just were unprepared, had no idea. But so yeah, what I think about a lot and what I see, and again, I'm working on some new ventures. I've actually left predictable revenue to do some new things because I need to do something new for myself. I just was like, done. Not Brazil. I'm actually still with the Brazil team, but the main company. You got to work with people that you like and trust, and that wasn't the situation with my, where I was in. But what I focus on, what I think about is this. I'm at the iceberg, right? This under the obvious day-to-day routine. How are executives and people feeling? Do they generally feel like crap, or are they feeling good about their team, their work, their ideas? Because that affects go-to-market, sales, marketing, your team. There's a board I'm on of a company in Edinburgh, and the nice thing is I can ride my bike to the board meetings, which is strange. And the CEO 2 months ago was just done, right? He just wanted to quit. He's just so exhausted. You don't want your CEO exhausted. Does anyone think that's a good idea? Right. So when someone is, or their VP of product just is done, wants to quit. So that is a thing that not only is going to be happening this year and next, but honestly for the foreseeable future, because the change in the world with everything that happened yesterday kind of woke up a lot of people. It's created all this uncertainty, anxiety. There's just all this with the uncertainty and the COVID, it doesn't we'll adapt. What it does is it's kind of like you have this, let's say you have this energy pie and there's 8 slices of pizza in it. Okay. And all the uncertainty around, should I do remote or not? Or is there a lockdown? That just takes out a couple pieces of your energy pie just because you don't really know. Right. Mm-hmm. Or maybe a quarter, or maybe half. Now you only got a little bit left for what are we going to do with product, hiring, managing, my family, myself. So kind of being able to better energize yourself and deal with the uncertainty and have a tighter team where you trust each other and you're not just trying to carry the full load for everyone else who's depressed. You can kind of help them. The difference is when you are excited about your day and your life and your work versus you just kind of dragging along, and that will affect, maybe not today, but in weeks or months or longer term, how you make money, how your business makes money. So like that is the thing that is going to, the really big change that is not quite as obvious yet.
Nice.
And it may not be for years.
Yeah. And one point that you brought that is very, very important is the team, especially for an CEO or an executive. How do you feel what are the main qualities that you feel that a team has to have to implement predictable revenue and have success with the methodology?
Well, you need a leader of some sort. So you need someone who's in charge of this project, right? So that makes or breaks it when you've got someone who's fully committed. Now they might be actually a prospector who's got some experience, and you have confidence in them as like have a mini entrepreneur. That might be an executive who has this as a part-time project, but again, they are fully committed. It's a top priority, and you know that they are. It might be a manager or SDR manager you've hired who's going to like build the team, but you need someone who it's their top priority, or a top. Like it's not something that gets pushed aside constantly. So that's one part of it. Another is, just having, if you really want the results to start, you need someone who's dedicated, who's full-time prospecting. Like kind of like part-time, you can learn a lot through part-time, like dabbling or like an intern, or you're not going to get meetings and revenue from that. But so that's when you really want things to start working. Someone who's prospecting full-time. And beyond that, again, I would send you to, in Brazil, the Implementando book, in the States, in English, from impossible. I can speak from impossible to inevitable.
Good.
In Portuguese, Implementando.
Yeah.
Because there's two sections that are really important. The first one's called nailing a niche. And that goes through how you kind of pick target markets and what to avoid in messaging. And there's a second section on outbound, which goes through in more details on like tactics. And also here's 4 or 5 reasons why outbound may not be a good fit, right? Your deal sizes are too small. Your services are too custom. It's like, so those would be more like too tactical, I think, generally for here, but that book would be vital. More important than the predictable revenue book here, Receita, Previsível, is for sales. It's like a sales Bible. But the thing that was missing in that book, because that came out 10 years ago, we updated it last year, and there's a workbook, which is great. Right. But if you're earlier stage, you're kind of getting started, or you're a leader, the Implementando book is a better one to start with, because it's more like a growth Bible, growth book. And it's actually rated, it's in the top 10 startup books of all time. And it was rated the #1 SaaS book. Right. So if you haven't read that one, that's the one I tell people to start with.
Yeah, I heard in another interviews that usually small companies, people that are starting to implement, you usually suggest that one, right? Yeah, and or if you're getting into outbound, like companies like Cisco, big companies too, like Cisco it's a better one to start with. It's like that nail and niche section, and it's good for anyone who's around outbound or growth, as like called the Growth Bible. So any like revenue executives. In Brazil, I'm on a board of a company called Nuvini, which is acquiring SaaS companies. Yeah. And so the book we sent out to all the CEOs and kind of top executives with the Implementando book is like a good starting point to make sure everyone kind of knows, okay, here's what it takes to grow a company if you're a C-level, like an executive. Right. And then, all right, for the sales people, leaders, the Receita Previsível book is a good like sales book for those types too. Nice. And you said that there are a few companies that predictable revenue is not for, let's say, low ticket to customized product. And what is the main issues that you see that companies face when trying to implement predictable revenue? Well, usually, there's 3 big risks. One is market risk, like, is your target market a good fit for it? Like if you sell a product, if you sell one-time products that are like $500 to $1,000 or $5,000 one time, you just can't. You need to make a certain amount of money per customer to make it profitable. Like if you have someone who's prospecting and maybe they can get in, it's called 1 customer a month, or 2 customers a month, or half a customer a month. You just can't get a lot of customers through outbound. You can get fewer, bigger, better. And so in the States, kind of rule of thumb is you want a customer to be worth, probably at least $10,000 or $20,000 US dollars lifetime value to be worth it.
There's probably less in Brazil because costs are less. I don't know what the exact number would be, but getting a lot of little customers doesn't work financially. Sometimes you do that for insights, like you just want to get some customers to like get some, but you may not make money that way. Maybe you get some more users. So that's one aspect. Yeah, that's one risk. Another risk is that you're in a market that's just hyper competitive, commoditized, and you don't have a unique differentiator. You just simply, so it's harder, like web design, hosting. Like you have to have something that you stand out and not be commoditized. And one more example, and this is all in the Implementando book, but one more example is, or a risk is actually executive expectations. Like you're not going to generate a bunch of money from outbound if you're starting from scratch right now in 2 months. It's going to be 6 to 18 months. 6, not for revenue, like 6 for, you can get revenue. Like if you were really lucky, it sure happens, but it's very rare. If you're in B2B SaaS and you're selling things that are more like, there's like a B2B business cycle, you probably have to expect 12 to 18 months to see like revenue, like recurring revenue coming in a significant way. So like impatience or just unrealistic expectations is a big risk in outbound.
Nice.
Probably everything, but
yeah. Cool. Thank you very much, Aaron. That I believe was my last question. It was a really great having the opportunity to speak to you. As I said, for me, it's a great pleasure to speak with my idols. And today,
interview series. Like again, you're just
but for me, and it's really good. I have a lot of learning, and it was really fun because for me, I got to learn a little bit about more the person, Aaron. So you got a lot of great insights that I know that are going to be very helpful, not only for anybody that is trying to reach their goals in sales, but reach their goals in life. So thank you very much, Aaron. Thank you. And sure. I hope to have you soon here in Brazil, in Florianopolis, or if I go to the United States, I'm sure I would like to meet you.
I got one last question for you then, Giovanni.
Of course.
So yeah, talking here, like for you personally, what was something you thought was interesting and you might take away from this?
Okay. A few things two things I think it was the most, what I learned most is about I like how you approach life. That's something that I feel that we have some things in common, and you got some great feedbacks. I think if you think about growing, not a lot, it's something that I learned about jiu-jitsu. You can't learn everything in a day because there are like unlimited numbers of positions. So if you learn a little bit every day, in the end, you're gonna be something. You're gonna feel happy about yourself and about listening, about your whisper, and always being very aware of what you feel, because sometimes I know that I'm like this sometimes, and I hide my feelings and no, I don't look for that. Let's just go. And it's very good to have someone like you having this feedback. And about
that's the future.
Yeah. And about the predictable revenue, for me, it's about the niche and about the expectations. As you said, that's something we carry for life. And so it's something that I see a lot in Snovio as well. People hear and they think that the tool is going to be a miracle. It's going to create great results. And that's not true. And I speak with my clients. That's why it's great to have you here, because you bring the methodology to the tool. And it's like I say, I train jiu-jitsu. If I give you a black belt and the most beautiful gi, you can wear that, but you're not gonna know actual jiu-jitsu. So it's the same idea. We are only the gi and the belt, but you gotta learn the methodology to have the results. And learning about that expectancy and see how you go, understand about yourself. And I think the two things that connect a lot. And I think that was some great learning experience for me.
Last fun fact, predictable revenues come out in the Ukraine and Russia any day now. So
and this is probably this webinar we are speaking about publishing in our Ukraine channel as well. We are starting doing webinars there, and it's going to be a great pleasure. So everybody in Ukraine, please remember to go check out the book, and it's going to be in Ukrainian as well.
Yeah.
Nice. Do you know Ukrainian? No. No, I'm lost on that as well. I'm lost on that as well. No, for me it's English, and that's it. All right. Thank you very much, Sharon. It was really good speaking with you, and hope to have you soon again here with us. Bye.
Thanks.